All right, guys. Today we're going to talk about a common sense to program design. Um, I think this is an important topic because there are a lot of programs that are getting floated around online right now, and different workouts people can do at home while they're stuck. And I think it'd be a good time to not only kind of highlight some of the things that could be good about that, but also look at some of the pitfalls and areas that people could fall, the traps people can fall into. And I think it makes sense to start with this idea of an intro and philosophy to what functional training is and what we really try to do at Sports and Fitness Performance, which is try to design the programs around the people in the gym. I think everything on the left hand side of this slide, like your traditional mindset of fitness and bodybuilding and powerlifting and Olympic lifting, those are all really great modalities, but if you really think about what they are, they're actually sports within themselves. So if I want to become a power lifter, I'm going to design my program around becoming a power lifter. Now there's great things that we can take from powerlifting and bring it into program design, but usually when someone is going and trying to pursue powerlifting, you're trying to take the person and fit them into that sport, which is a specific skill to a certain degree. The problem with that is that's normally not the goal of people that come to the gym. I mean, maybe that is the goal, but I would say that more times than not, most people are there for more of a performance minded or life enhancement type reason, like all the things on the right hand side. So things that are in sport and life are infinite, random, multidimensional, and chaotic. We need to design our programs around that rather than, let's just use the example of bodybuilding, 3 sets of 10 or any of the, periodization models that have been around for a really long time that people subscribe to. They might have been great for specifically bodybuilding or powerlifting or Olympic lifting, but I don't know that they necessarily translate to people with what they want. Most of the things on the left-hand side would require, 2 hours or more per day in the gym and maybe taking some type of enhancing supplement or steroid to get results. Some of these programs are not really designed for regular people or athletes that are trying to look to performance. And like I said, I don't want to throw out everything about those things. You can take a lot of great ideas, but it's mostly designing the program. Our approach is to design it around the person rather than the program we want to fit them into. So it goes back to the why, like what is the goal of training in the first place? And, if we're trying to make people healthier, more durable, to perform better, we have to first improve their movement quality. Look at, first define what quality movement is. And then from there, look to make sure people are making the cut on those movements. So we're going to pinpoint weaker areas in fundamental movement patterns, like if someone doesn't squat well or step well or lunge well, or if they have deficiencies in their shoulder mobility or their active straight leg raise, their ability to separate one leg from the other. We can put people through a functional movement screen to be able to find out what those things are and see where they're lacking in mobility and motor control. And then we can design corrective exercises around that. We have Greg on the call here today, and obviously if some pain pops up throughout that screen, we would have him come in and say, okay, this is what we can do to diagnose what that pain is. What's the cause there? That's our first level of approach. And that brings us to this performance pyramid, which is, looking at the bottom of this pyramid called movement, right? It's first, are they pain free with movement, right? And if they're not, then we have to go get that checked. It's not a fitness problem anymore. Now it's a medical problem. If there is no pain there, but there's dysfunctional movement, people are not moving efficiently, then we have to build out just good quality movement. Then the next level is performance. That's our area what people come to the gym for. They're going to try to get stronger. They're going to get more powerful. They want to improve their endurance. They want to do all those things. But do they even have the movement capability in the bottom foundation to do those things? Now, with that being said, you can go to the gym with bad movement. You can go and do a bunch of deadlifts and still, get them done. But if they're not done with quality, it may be technique, but it also could be just that you can't move in that pattern. It's going to eventually catch up with you. We talk about the example is high school kids in the gym. They're able to do horrible deadlifts where they're rounding their back and their heels are coming up off the ground and all kinds of crazy stuff. And their head is shooting forward. They're able to do that. Now, yeah, it might be a technique thing that they're just not getting coached up. Most of the time, it's just they don't have that pattern of a good quality hinge, but they'll walk out of the rack and be fine. You know, they'll lift up a bunch of weight incorrectly and they'll be okay. How does that happen? Well, the human body is pretty resilient, and you're going to be able to do a bunch of bad deadlifts a lot of times before something bad happens. It's just, I want to get ahead of it to make sure that that bad thing doesn't happen. And we can do that through either improving the technique, which that could be the problem, but more times than not, it's improving mobility and motor control to make sure that movement is quality first. So, you know, we always get the question when parents come in and they want to have their kid go through a program, because at the end of the day, you look at the top of this performance pyramid, skill is what they ultimately want to improve on. So performance is that middle ground. They know that if I increase my strength, increase my power, increase my endurance, all those fitness attributes, right? They should be able to better express their skill. So they'll right away think, well, I played baseball, so I want to send my kid to you because you know baseball and you're going to train them specifically for baseball. From a marketing standpoint, that's a really easy sell for people because they think there are specific exercises for baseball players. Now, there might be at the highest levels, but when it comes to most normal athletes that come in, even high level players, but most normal athletes that come in, we want to treat the human body. As long as you have 2 arms, 2 legs, a body, and a head, like, we are going to work on movement first, because you're probably going to have some issues with some of those movements before we start to look to performance and before we start to look to skill. That's not usually how it happens. We usually go the other way, right? We start with skill. We go out and we start playing the sport, and then we talk about maybe training to help enhance that sport, and we rarely look at those movement capabilities that could maybe be a little bit deficient, that are causing some of the issues up the chain. So the main thing we want to look at, and this performance pyramid is something I show most of the people that come in when they ask that sports specific question, like, what are you going to do specifically for baseball? Or what are you going to do specifically for football? Well, we've got to make sure that the body is functioning correctly. So then add the performance in, and then we talk about the skill stuff at the end. So what about for a regular person, just general everyday life, you know, fitness, just being able to be healthy? Well, there are movement capabilities, that bottom piece that you have to check the box on those things. But then there are movement capacities above that, like the performance and like the skills that we can do in the gym to make sure that you're a little bit more durable, a little bit more healthy, able to withstand the demands of your everyday. So if you have to get up and down off the ground, if you have to pick things up off the floor, if you have to pull heavy things around, just movement alone isn't going to help you there. It's got to be movement first, and then the capacities and strength and performance on top of that are going to help you be a little bit more of a durable person. Okay, so you know, kind of wrap up here, the key thing is designing the program. If we're going to talk about common sense approach to program design, it's making sure we're designing the program around the person. The way we know what that person needs is we look at what their goals are, but then we're also going to look at some of those weak links. What are the things that they struggle with, especially from a movement perspective? Clean those out, and then we worry about the enhancements, the performance, the things people come to the gym for, because they know that it's going to help them better express their everyday life and their sport. So we can get into just a few questions if you guys have any on this idea. You know, maybe Eileen, just, you know, how this applies to you in the classes. You know, how, you know, we focus and emphasize right now with the online class, it's a little different, but when we're in the gym, we focus on movement as the first thing we do in the warm up, you know, working on mobility, working on motor control. You know, that's what we're doing when we work on those things. We're trying to build the foundation and the base. So then we can add in the other stuff at the top.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think, you know, going back, I don't know if I can, yeah, can I go back to those slides? Yeah. You know, I like looking at this when we talk to people. It's like all those things on the left, those are sports within themselves. You're going to design, you're trying to fit the person into those things rather than what we really need to be training for, which is, you know, what are the demands that individual is going to need to withstand, right? So not only just like one movement here and there, but also like the combination and the accumulation of activities that they're doing over the course of a week, a month, and over a year. Like, what do they need to be ready for? And then you start looking at training loads, like how much training do people really need to be doing to maintain this? Like, at what point does training become the risk factor and the thing that's making people worse, right? So, that's the worst thing we want to hear is like, oh, somebody's back's bothering them because they've been, going to the gym a lot. We're making fitness is actually more of a risk factor for injury than the everyday things that they're doing that could potentially get them hurt. So, I think if we always now it's not always easy to do that with people because they see what's in the fitness magazines. They did maybe old bodybuilder programs when they were younger. They want to power lift and lift heavy stuff. And I get it. It's, it's kind of more of a, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's you, Eileen, but, but there's a certain point. It's like, well, what are you training for? At what level do you say, like, we have to take a common sense approach and not just do what you think you should be doing, but do what you actually need.
Right.
So,
no, I
Greg,
always want to go for the Olympics.
Go ahead, Eileen.
I was just saying, yeah, I always wanted to be an Olympian, but I'll never happen.
Oh, Olympian in your own mind.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, Greg, how often do you see that in practice? Like people that come and they're injured because of their training style, the way that they're
working. I'd say like at least 90% of people I see. Mm-hmm. When you were just bringing that up too, I think I read an article recently on strength coach, like how strong is strong enough?
Yeah.
Like at what point are you like, did you get enough strength gains that you have to like keep going so you don't continue to hurt yourself?
Right.
Where it might be more important to, instead of lifting and doing some of those things, it's more important just to stick with some of the correctives, mobility, just take care of yourself, recover.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's always like we talk about it with when we do, so there's the FMS, which is the movement screen, but then as you know, Greg, the FCS, which is the capacity screen. When we do those capacities, it's like the strongest person on the team like might be failing something like their explosive control, like their ability to, they might be really strong on the bench press and their squat, but then their explosive control is lacking, or their impact control, their ability to be reactive, but they continue to just lift heavy. And you're actually, you're taking away from those other attributes of athleticism. Usually the guys that lift the most weight and are the most powerful in the gym are not always the best players. So it's like, at what point, like, what are you training for? Are you training to be a lifter, or are you training to be a football player? So, to be fast and explosive and durable and stay healthy, like that's the goal. Keep the goal, right? So yeah, as much as it would be easy just to say, oh, well, everybody just needs to get stronger. Sometimes we look at it and say, hey, this person's the strongest one on the team. They're not the best player, and they could be a lot faster if they didn't lack so much of their explosive control. So we'll do like our testing. It's the difference between a posture control test, which is like a strength, just a loaded carry test, versus doing a test where they have to do a 2-legged jump to one leg to then land on two. So we're actually looking at how elastic they are off of one foot, and the distance that they get, and then how symmetrical they are from left to right side. So we can test this. We have the movement screen. If I go back to the pyramid, the capacities kind of fit. Can I get to that? Let's see. Yeah. You guys see the pyramid? The capacities fit between movement and performance. So if I could add like a fourth layer in here, the capacities would be in between movement and performance. So it would be get clean movement first, check the box on that, and then add in the second block, which would be capacities. Because you could have movement and capacity and still not be a great athlete and still not be at a high performance, but it's really just the basics, like just passing on those things, and then work on the speed, the strength, the explosive,ness and endurance.
So do you find yourself, going back to the person who comes in, I want you to train me because you're a baseball player. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously the first things we look at are the movement before the performance. So that's
Mhm.
where your FMS comes into play, FCS.
Right.
But there are certain things that maybe that you want to look for regarded, like in terms of evaluation, maybe not training,
Right. Right.
more sport specific. So if you have a
Right.
thrower, maybe you
Mhm.
want to look at shoulder, like range of motion, external rotation, internal rotation.
Yeah.
Are you
So
doing that in the beginning just to kind of like show parents and the athlete where they're at, or are you waiting more towards when you get to the skill aspect of the pyramid?
usually we would do so there's a other screen called like I don't know if you've seen the On Base University stuff yet, but
Hmm.
it's almost like the TPI has a screen for golf.
Yep.
That's the screen for baseball. So the idea is
Gotcha.
you've got your regular basic movement screen, and then you have this more of a sport specific screen. But again, it ends up being, as much as it's a sport specific screen, you're just looking at specific things that would be required for like from a movement standpoint that is probably going to be lacking in the person because of the sport they play, right?
Right.
So you're going to see like, lack of internal rotation on their throwing arm. Like, that can be screened out in the more of the baseball screen. I tend to just go very much, if you have a 1, which means you have a deficiency on the movement screen, I tend to say, let's clean up the movement screen first, and then we'll worry about going more specific. So I would
Yeah.
say I wouldn't wait to do those screens, those more sport specific screens. I wouldn't wait to go to the skill level. I would try to catch it a little bit after. I would catch it after I'm passing everything on the movement screen.
Right.
I look at the movement screen as it's just the basics. Like
Yep.
we're starting to get you moving. You've got to increase your activity level. You've got ones on the screen. I don't, I probably, to save time, we do that. I probably could do more of the sport specific screens in the beginning, but it would really be more like, hey, we just did this movement screen. Here's what you're lacking. Here's what it means. Here's the funny thing too, is we'll always use terminology that's going to be related to their sport based on the screen.
Hmm.
So it's like, okay, they can't do the active straight leg raise. They have a 1 on that, let's say. What things in baseball are going to be impacted because of that? So even though we're not using and this gets more into how we're communicating with clients, we don't talk
Yeah.
to them kind of on that level of the movement screen, but if they have the inability to separate their legs, what things in the actual sport are going to be affected by that. So we're going to always talk to them through the filter of the sport they're playing in, but the movement screen doesn't matter if I'm a soccer player, baseball player. It's the same screen.
Right.
It's just the way that we talk about it with the person is a little different.
Yeah.
Specific.
I wasn't sure if you guys would see more of like a selling point to doing more, adding more like sport specific stuff in the evaluation process early on
I know TJ's
versus
doing
more
it with
towards the
tennis.
skill.
So there's the tennis screen, which is Racket Fit. So same
Hmm.
thing, just like the On Base University, Racket Fit's is the screen for that. We haven't standardized putting those in yet at this point, but I think we probably would do that at some time in the future.
Okay.
Yep. Cool.
Cool.
All right, guys. This was
Okay.
fun.
Thanks, Frank.
Okay, you're welcome. I will. I'll be in touch, as you know. I'll be sending emails.
All right.
All right. Thanks,
Sounds
Frank.
All right, guys.
Thank
Yep.
you.
I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye-bye.